I'd like to welcome everybody to our special council meeting for February 20th. And tonight we are meeting with representatives from Hydro One. So this is really exciting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have all members of council in attendance. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the published agenda for the special council meeting on February 20th. Councillor Mady, Councillor Hammond, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. Public presentations, and I will move to our CEO to introduce our representatives.
Bondi. So council tonight, we do have representatives from Hydro One with us. So every 4 to 6 months, we've asked Hydro One to come and present to council kind of feedback that you receive from community, kind of items that we like to address with Hydro One. The past two have been very productive. So tonight, virtually, we do have, apologize if I mispronounced the name, Saeed Feroz, Malika Kara, and Li Zhu here to present. So at this time, I'll turn it over to, looks like Leah, you're going to take the lead.
Hi, Doug. Thank you for that. So this is Malika here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Excellent. All right, so we have a presentation that we have shared with council. I want to thank you all for making the time and inviting us here today to provide an update on the immediate steps we've taken since our last council presentation to improve reliability in the area. My name is Malika Kara, and I'm a Community Relations Manager at Hydro One. I'm joined today by my colleagues Li Zhu, Manager of Distribution Investment Planning, and Saad Feroz with our System Planning team, who will lead today's discussion. We understand that power interruptions, even brief flickering of lights, can be frustrating for our customers. We want to thank you and your constituents. At our last meeting, we encouraged your constituents to report any power outages that they are experiencing, and we have consolidated this data and have some information to share based on their diligent reporting today. And we have some updates on what that means for us here at Hydro One. Please feel free to pause us at any time if you have any questions throughout the presentation. If you don't mind moving to the next slide. Excellent. I can't see the presentation, but I'll take your word for it. So I want to highlight the key discussions on today's agenda. Again, we're here to talk about the data that we've used from your outage reporting and what that means for us here at Hydro One. So I'll pass it over to Li and Saad to share some more information.
Thanks, Malika. I'm not able to see the slides. Are you all able to see the slides on your end?
Give us 1 second. We're just calling it up right now.
Perfect.
Thank you. And if you don't mind just going forward one more. Sorry. Yeah, other way. There you go. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for this opportunity. I'll jump right into it. So on this slide, on the right side of the screen, you can see a map of the town of Essex. Each dot here on the screen represents a Hydro One distribution customer. And as you look towards the bottom of the screen, the image towards the lake, you can see numerous customers in the Colchester area and along the coast. To Malika's point, we've used the customer's location, our outage data from the devices we've installed, as well as the diligent reporting from customers to better pinpoint the areas of power interruption. Unfortunately, despite all these efforts, 2023 was a poor year in terms of reliability. and we're still seeing numerous momentary interruptions downstream of Harold in Colchester and the beaches area west of Colchester. The table that we have here illustrates the number of momentary events we have recorded at the feeder head, which is in Kingsville. So the Kingsville M1 in particular is the feeder that supplies both Harold and Colchester. And the momentary events we're discussing here are power, when power is lost for less than a minute before it's quickly restored. And we are noticing, I think, an encouraging trend over the years. So based on the data we have at our feeder head, you can see that interruptions over the years from the feeder head has reduced. Since 2021, we have installed several devices on the distribution line before and after Harold and before and after Colchester. The devices after Colchester was put in just late last spring, and these devices together help us to better sectionalize the line and minimize the impact where fault in one area has on the rest of the feeder. Due to these devices, customers on various parts of the feeder would experience different amounts of interruptions, but approximately 5 or 10 more momentary events than what we record in the table above. ELK, as well as other Hydro One customers in Harold, will have experienced less momentary interruptions than customers in Colchester and farther downstream due to the presence of these devices. Next slide, please. On this slide, we'll turn our attention to the 2023 sustained outages. Unlike momentary outages, which are temporary power interruptions, such as a branch briefly making contact with a line during strong wind, sustained outages are the longer power off events. These typically require our field crews to respond, investigate, and take the appropriate action. Our system is designed to experience more momentary outages in place of long sustained outages. Once again, 2023 has been a poor year in terms of sustained outages. There are a number of major events as well as local storms that significantly impacted our customers' experience. In the first table there, you'll see this is data in terms of the hours of outages excluding force majeure, which are major events that cause sustained interruptions to more than 10% of our customers, as well as loss of supply, which are outages on the transmission system, which supplies the distribution system. The 24 hours in 2023 are significantly higher than previous year. And a big part of this number is some of the local storms that we have experienced in Essex. In fact, when we compare Essex against our other service territory across the province, I think Essex has been impacted the most or hit the hardest by these localized weather events. So a couple of notable dates that come to mind when we look at these local storms are what we experienced in the area in late February, early July, as well as in October. Even though this table only includes the duration of outages, it's also, I want to take this opportunity to comment on the frequency of these outages.
Hi there, we can't hear you.
Oh, I think I
Okay.
dropped for a sec. You can hear me now?
Okay, yes, you just may need to repeat the last couple sentences you said, please.
Got it. I think I was just talking about the first table. I just wanted to bring up a couple notable dates and events that contribute to the local storms. And they were in late February, July, and October. The next table here, before I move on, even though this table only captures the duration of these events, I do want to make a comment on the frequency of these outages. So the average customer on the Kingsville M1 would have experienced approximately 4 of these outages in 2023, which is a bit higher than our previous 4-year averages. The next table, really includes the table data from the first table, plus all the major storm events as well as force majeure that were experienced. And that adds approximately 20 hours to the number in 2023. This number here is, unfortunately more representative of what the end customer would have experienced in this area. And the major events to note are, we had a transmission tower failure in August of 2024, which lost supply to Kingsville Station, which then impacted our ability to supply our distribution customers. There was also several major storms in mid and late February with freezing rain, and as well as a bunch of forestry related issues as well, which together contributed to some of the 20 hours that were discussed there. Next slide, please. So we're going to continue to invest in the Harrow and Colchester area to improve the reliability and move forward on some of the commitments that we've discussed before. On this slide, what we're doing is just looking to recap on the investments we made over the last year. So the first one is targeting off-cycle vegetation management. Our forestry team continues to patrol and trim trouble spots where vegetation is encroaching on our line. Secondly, we are performing another patrol and trimming this spring for the lines downstream of Harrow towards Colchester, as well as from there further west. The second point is regarding patrolling lines every time an outage occurs. Our control center, who monitors the lines, will dispatch our local Essex line staff to drive the line and start troubleshooting to determine what happened every time the feeder operates. Next, we have installed additional recloser just west of Colchester to contain and minimize impacts of these outages. This was done from the feedback we received from the patrols in this area, which had identified that there were some causes of outages that were being experienced. And thus, in addition to addressing these concerns, we decided to install additional devices to, once again, better sectionalize the fault in this area and prevent it from impacting upstream customers. Next, we installed another set of communicating fault circuit indicators on Ridge Road. And for kind of similar reasons as discussed above, we have noticed more outages originating in this area. Thus, we wanted to install some more devices to be able to better record data in here. Lastly, we have scheduled more infrared patrols of the lines in spring 2024. Once this is completed and the defects are identified, we will move forward to correct those defects. I'll turn this over to my colleague Saad, who will discuss the next steps here.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you, Lay. In this slide, I will be speaking to our continued investments in Harrow and Colchester. So as Lay just mentioned, Hydro One has been investing significantly in the region. However, our trends indicate that there's still some more work still required. Hence, some of our next steps are listed on this slide here for easy reference. To start, Hydro One is looking to upgrade our existing reclosers with remote operable electronic reclosers. This will allow for improved coordination between devices, hence minimizing momentary outages. In addition, Hydro One will be also looking to install additional remote operable electronic reclosers on the feeder. This will help to further sectionalize and minimize the impact of those outages. Next, Hydro One is planning a major line build investment in the southwestern portion of Essex. This would involve building roughly 3 kilometers of line to supply customers from an alternate source. This investment would look to address the reliability in the region, as well as increase the load capacity. Hydro One will continue to conduct off-cycle vegetation management as required. Vegetation management is next scheduled for 2024. And lastly, Hydro One will continue to patrol lines when outages occur. And as Lay mentioned earlier, the patrol is also scheduled for 2024 infrared patrol. Next slide, please. In addition to working on continuing to address the reliability concerns, we'll shift gears quickly to touch on supporting growth in the town of Essex and working with the town of Essex and ELK. So Hydro One and the town continues to leverage our open lines of communication to work together. This includes sharing development details and integrating the town's needs into our regional planning activities. Building on that, Hydro One has reviewed the town's data and incorporated it into our planning for the distribution system. Hydro One has also integrated the town's proposed plans into Hydro One's load projections for the latest Windsor-Essex regional planning cycle. And this study essentially looks at the larger transmission needs of the area. So what's next? The regional planning is now at the Integrated Regional Resource Planning, IRRP stage for short, in which the Independent Electricity System Operator, IESO for short, will announce proposals to rectify those transmission needs. And this is expected to be released in the second half of 2024. We'd like to conclude this slide by reiterating that Hydro One is committed to continuing to work together to support growth in Essex and to ensure reliable power. I'll pass it over to Malika.
Thanks, Saad. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, please. Awesome. So again, I want to take the opportunity to remind you all that in the event of an outage, even momentary, we strongly encourage our customers to contact Hydro One directly to report it. They can either call us or report it online through the contact information provided on the slide you see now. This information helps us track the number of outages and pinpoint locations. We want to continue to encourage everyone to report these outages as they occur. Next slide, please. With that, I want to thank you for having us here again. We appreciate your questions and any feedback that have been provided previous to today. I want to reiterate that Hydro One values the efforts of our customers who continue to call us and directly report outages. We also appreciate the ongoing focus of this council to work with us, and should you have any follow-up questions, please let us know. I will now turn the floor over to you if you have any questions for us.
Much for your presentation. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thank you for the presentation, and we really appreciate it. It was a really detailed presentation. I'm wondering, does Hydro One support ELK's investments to improve reliability in the Elk territory? And could you give us some examples of that?
Sure, I can take that one. So, of course, we have and will continue to work with ELK. I think in the past, in terms of some of these issues, we've come together in terms of coordination to make sure our devices are coordinating together and we're able to, further build on the philosophy of minimizing outages when they do occur. And I think in recent months, there's some more ongoing discussion with regards to some of the additional investments that are being looked at within ELK service territory there in Harrow. And Hydro One is looking to work with ELK to support those developments.
Follow up to that, more to the point, Elk has made a request in May of 2023 to install smart switches in the town of Essex and Harrow to improve reliability. When can we expect Hydro One to provide an answer to ELK's request?
Thank you. I think that one is still being worked in the details with our operating team, but I'm told that it should be soon. There are some just operating details that both parties needs to agree upon in terms of, who has the authorization to operate a section of line and, what is ELK's intentions in terms of when they transfer load so that we can make sure that both sets of our staff as well as our customers are safe in events when those do occur. So my answer to you there is soon. If I do have more specific dates, I'll definitely circle back with you.
Appreciate those answers. And lastly, as a new business owner out in that area, I have a business in Essex One in Colchester South, and the outages, while brief, anything you guys can do and all the help you're doing to help mitigate that is much appreciated. As we have lost equipment, maybe not directly to it, but it would really help us a lot. Any efforts you can do to help that. Thank you.
I will say that it's really great. We don't like to have storms, but you do a great job of rallying your lines persons and getting them down here when we do have storms. So we appreciate that. And we're all going to knock on wood that 2024 doesn't bring any big storms anywhere. 2023 was pretty rough. And I think that typically residents understand when there's a long outage. It seems to be like the flickers that are what is causing damage. So I have a couple questions myself. I think before, we've had this ongoing relationship, which I appreciate too. I think it's really good for our residents to see that we're all communicating in a open, transparent way. But and we've been pushing to the residents to report to Hydro One when they have even a flicker. Are you seeing more residents complain and report the flickers and the outages to you? Because I think before you said that they didn't. So that's my first question, please.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So I think we are seeing more, definitely more reports. I think this builds upon, I think there was a billing insert that was sent out in, I think, spring of 2022, if I'm not mistaken, where we once again encourage customers to call in. So we definitely see a big surge in 2022, and same thing in 2023, but maybe to a little lesser extent, which we can definitely understand due to, fatigue about calling in all the time. But I do want to note, as Malika has mentioned, that those data does come to us, and the map that I was putting up earlier in terms of where all the distribution customers are in town of Essex, we are able to take a more granular look at what customers are experiencing, and those calls that the customers are providing to us helps us to have a more comprehensive picture in terms of what the individual end use experience is.
So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to push that on our end. If you took that granular map and compared it to a different region, are you noticing that we have a lot more flickers than other regions?
Yeah, so that's a tough question for us to answer. For the momentary side, we do not sort of treat them the same way as we would with sustained outages. So in other words, like, this is not something we're able to compare corporate wide, unlike the sustained outages. So it's kind of hard for us to say, but my comments there about 2023, I think comparing all of our operations centers, Essex was an area that was by far hit the hardest with both these major storms as well as local storms, right? And just looking at it anecdotally based on the number of operations, we do agree that it is perhaps on the high side, which is why you've seen us take all these steps and all the future steps to try to decrease those number of occurrences going forward.
Sir Mady?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I was hearing the new line, 3 kilometers of new line and an alternative feed really caught my ears living in the southwest of our great municipality. Do you have any more information on that? Because I think having a second supply down there, being at the end of the line, would really help us out.
We do have some more details, but I'd hate to set the expectation now without us having gone through our detailed engineering and teching in terms of the routes. But I think the secondary supply, being able to take some customers off of the same feeder that supplies both Harold as well as Colchester, as well as the further west, would help, is what we're looking to do. Once again, because it's momentary, these would have to be more permanent transfers, not, for example, when power is lost, for a little bit and we move customers over, because in that case, customers would still experience those momentary outages, right? So unfortunately, some of those details are still forthcoming, but it is something that, the team has spent quite a bit of time looking at, and, we're committed to looking into it further and making sure we add it to our business plan such that it can happen in due time.
Questions from members of council? I also have a couple more. As mayor, I've had meetings with developers, and I'm constantly in contact with residents. With the flooding, people are talking about, do we have enough sanitary capacity? And, for growth, do we have enough water capacity? So, what do we have in terms of, do you know how much capacity we have in your growth forecast for Colchester, Essex, Harrow? And do you feel that there's any capacity constraints? And if so, are there any plans to alleviate the constraints? I know in Lakeshore you're doing the new line, but there's been no talk of anything in terms of that size new down here in the southern end of Essex County.
So I think we are aware of the growth that's been put forth by the town in terms of those specific areas in Colchester and around, and I think that was also captured in the latest regional planning, which Saad has mentioned. So we do not believe, based on what's been forecasted from the town, that there's any issues on the feeder to be able to handle that capacity. And I think once again this comes down to just kind of working together, right? We have factored in the typical low growth for areas, mostly residential, and that does not, is not nearly as energy intensive as some of these commercial, or should we say industrial applications. So our existing assets should be able to handle that. At the same time, if when we do move ahead with this secondary supply, that will also help us to bring another factor into the mix to be able to better supply load growth in that area as well, right? Even though that's not our main driver for needing this investment. Hope I answered your question. If not, let me know.
Thank you. So a lot of the flickers that I'm noticing, people will have a flicker in ELK territory, and it's literally a squirrel. Somebody's actually seen a squirrel get fried, and that is the cause. So what is Hydro One doing for, are you able to find out what the cause is of the flickers and post them out? Because a lot of times we don't get explanations for the flickers. And I think that that's what's hard. When the power goes out for a long time, okay, it's a storm, an ice storm, a transformer blew, a guy wire, a pole was taken down. But when people don't have explanations for the flickers, they just blame me, frankly. So I'm wondering, are you finding explanations for the flickers? And can we do things like squirrel protectors? And can we let people know, hey, it was a squirrel, like legitimately it was a squirrel?
Yeah, I can definitely understand the questions and maybe the frustration around just wanting to know what happened, right? So when we do our patrols and investigation, sometimes I would say, I don't know how often, but sometimes we're able to find these causes, such as a squirrel or a bird or maybe a tree branch that with the specific wind from a direction made contact. But a lot of times, despite our best efforts to patrol the line, walk the poles, see what happened, we're unable to determine what the cause of these momentary events are, in which case it's quite difficult for us to comment. I know previously, I believe, the town has reached out to us with regards to particular events. And with those ones, we were able to dig into it further, and where we had information to share, we did that. But they were mostly regarding sustained outages. And if that's something of interest, that maybe I can look to Malika there. We can attempt to continue to do that going forward. But I just want to set the expectation that, unfortunately, due to the nature of our system and how long it is and the transient nature of those causes, we do not have a particular reason for each one of those events.
Wrap up and I ask one more question. Anything else from members of council? Okay, so thank you for coming. I'm as the town is the sole shareholder of ELK, and they've provided some pretty good direction to the ELK board to do the work on their end. And with Integris helping, we really are making gains at ELK. We're also, going out to the different service areas. Like tomorrow, Thursday night, for example, ELK is going to Lakeshore to host an open house. If you ever want to come out and to our municipality and host an open house, we'd love to have you. We could have a room at the arena and have some coffee and snacks. So that would be great. And my last thing is those switches are so important to both of our communities. And eventually we want to get them out to our other service territories like Kingsville and Lakeshore. It would just make a big difference. When one half of the town goes out, we can switch it. So I appreciate your diligent work on that, and let us know about the switches as soon as you can, please. And thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll have you back in a little bit and we can keep making progress. I will go to CAO Suite.
Just before, like you said, wrapped up, I do want to thank Hydro One again for attending today, but also in your presentation, very pleased to see, because I know we met with yourselves and our town staff where our projection and growth is, and seeing that as part of your future plans, especially with IESO. So that's great to see and greatly appreciate that. For council residents, just want a reminder that on our town website, we do have a utility provider site. So on there it is listed as Hydro One service map. We have a link to it if you have a claim, also their 1-800 number, and also their website. And we have previous presentations plus how to customers can notify Hydro One if there's an outage. So we do have a material available for the public as well.
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, I need a motion that the presentation by Hydro One be received. Councillor Hammond, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
And for the members of the public, oh, thank you, sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Members of the public, we will see you at 6 with our regular council meeting.